Today we're back watching some creepy true crime TikToks.
A woman who was missing for 30 years was just found alive in Puerto Rico. So Patricia Copta vanished without a trace from her home in Pennsylvania in 1992. The situation surrounding her disappearance was a little strange and scary because Patricia's mental health had been getting worse and worse over the years. So when she disappeared, the police told her younger sister and husband that they thought she left on her own accord and basically closed the case. They thought that she would maybe come back, but then 30 years went by with no phone calls and no contact. Everyone in her life had assumed she passed away. But recently, an 83-year-old woman in an elderly home in Puerto Rico started opening up to a nurse for the first time. The woman had been diagnosed with dementia and started bringing up things in her life that she had never spoken about before. This alarmed one of the nurses at the facility, who contacted authorities to get a DNA test because she started believing that this woman was a missing woman from the United States. And sure enough, it was Patricia. She had never told anyone about her previous life and had never contacted her family. Her husband and sister were contacted because they're still alive and they were shocked.
That's quite weird though, isn't it? It's like, what was she doing for them 30 years? Imagine someone disappears, you think they've died, and it turns out they're like somewhere else and they've been living their life for 30 years. It's quite weird, isn't it? How did she get there? Honestly, that's what I'm wondering. It's like, did she literally just drop her stuff and disappear? Like, I'm intrigued. Apparently the husband wants nothing to do with her. That's quite sad though, isn't it? Because doesn't she have like mental health issues? It's like the fact that like he doesn't care. It's like your wife is literally still alive. Maybe he's bitter, maybe he just doesn't want anything to do with her. So no one will ever find out how or why she got there. That's what I was thinking. Was she married to someone else? Did she have other kids? I mean, 30 years is a very long time. That's like longer than I've been alive. I've been alive for 20 years. Imagine being missing for 30 years. Like, you could do so much in that amount of time.
This little girl was kidnapped in 2018 and has just been found. On the 25th of October 2018, 4-year-old Aranza Lopez was on a supervised visit with her biological mum. Her mum, Esmeralda, was being investigated over abuse allegations, so Aranza was actually in foster care at the time. It was arranged that the pair would have a supervised visit at a Washington shopping centre. However, during the visit, Esmeralda requested to take Aranza to the toilets and used the opportunity to snatch the little girl in a stolen vehicle. The FBI were notified and a huge search for Aranza, and even advertised a $10,000 reward. It wasn't until a year later that Esmeralda was found and arrested, but there was still no sign of the little girl. That was until last month.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm thinking about the same girl, but I think this girl might have been found because of a Netflix documentary. I'll get into it in a minute.
She was recovered by Mexican authorities in February in western Mexico. In 2021, Esmeralda was actually extradited back to Washington state and pled guilty to second-degree kidnapping and robbery. She was sentenced to 20 months in prison.
The person I was thinking about wasn't actually her, but recently someone else was found from like a missing Netflix documentary. I can't remember all the details, but basically someone had went missing and obviously they were featured in like a missing Netflix documentary, and eventually they were found because someone recognized them off the documentary. But yet again, it's like, why would the mother like run away with her? 20 months, she could have had 20 years exactly. The woman got 20 months. And there was abuse allegations, so I'm assuming she probably wasn't a good mom. I want to know what the judge was on, because 20 months isn't enough. Exactly, that's just the way the law system is. Like, that's literally the criminal law system. Someone could kidnap their own child, go missing for a year, and only get 20 months in jail. It's shocking, isn't it?
Did this woman chop her husband up and dump him in a suitcase? Melanie Maguire married Bill in 1999. They had 2 sons together, and from the outside it looked like they had a really good relationship. However, behind closed doors, things were not good. Melanie claimed that Bill had a gambling problem and a temper. One night in 2004, Melanie claims that Bill pushed her against a wall in an argument and hit her. She then stated that he tried to choke her. The next day, Bill was missing. Melanie contacted a divorce attorney and also filed for a restraining order. On May the 5th, 2004, some fishermen discovered a suitcase in Chesapeake Bay. Inside, they made a horrific discovery. Inside was a man's dismembered legs. Over the next week or 2, more suitcases were found. These contained a torso, a head, thighs, and a pelvis. It was found that the person had been shot to death. When the man was identified as Bill Maguire, Melanie said that she burst into tears. Interestingly, police found that Melanie had bought a gun 2 days before Bill's disappearance. They also found out she was having an affair. Police then discovered Bill's vehicle in Atlantic City. Melanie claims that she'd moved the vehicle as a prank. She said that he was out at a casino and she was sick of him gambling, so she moved the car. However, police found on Melanie's computer that she'd Googled how to purchase guns illegally. She also searched how to commit murder and undetectable poisons. Rubbish bags in her house also matched the rubbish bags that Bill was wrapped in. Melanie was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, but she maintained she was not the killer. She suggested that her husband may have been killed over gambling debts. She claims that Bill had told her to buy a gun to protect herself.
If you're ever going to try and commit a crime like what she done, do the complete opposite of what she done, basically. You know, you don't look that stuff up in Google because the police can go through your computer. I don't know if it's just me, but I got a feeling maybe she did get someone else to do it, or like maybe she done part of it but got someone else to help her. Because like, think of it, a woman cutting up a man, I don't think that would be possible, especially someone of her size. With help, no way she could do all that alone. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking she had a little help from somewhere. Maybe a sibling, someone she was having an affair with, etc. I just don't think someone could do that much as a woman, not in like a misogynistic way, but like she doesn't look very strong. Or maybe I'm just like, you know, being misogynistic. Maybe she actually is capable of doing that. It's just like it doesn't look like she'd be able to. But yet again, it's just crazy how that like happened. Imagine coming across that discovery.
One of you is going to end up dead. This is the chilling statement that friends of this couple made prior to a horrifying turn of events. On the 25th of March 2022, 24-year-old Onlyfans model Abigail White killed her boyfriend.
Okay, so I think I've actually heard about this story before. This is the Onlyfans killer. I don't know a lot about it except that this woman's cuckoo.
She stabbed Bradley Lewis through the heart with a kitchen knife when he told her he wanted to finish the relationship. When police arrived at the scene, she actually tried to tell them that he'd done this to himself, but she quickly confessed. She said that she'd never meant to hurt him. Abigail was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 18 years in prison. Shockingly, despite being in prison, she has been able to find a new boyfriend on the outside.
Why would you ever want to date someone like her? Can we talk about this? You know, whenever like a serial killer's finally caught, there will be like people who are like obsessed with them, like fangirl, literal like fangirls for like the serial killer or criminal. I don't understand that. I think that's very, very weird and bizarre. How are you going to be a fan of someone who's literally murdered someone? How are you going to literally be in a relationship with someone who's in jail for murdering someone? It doesn't make any sense. I can't find a boyfriend or a girlfriend and I'm not even a murderer. Exactly how is she able to get into a relationship? Yeah, I can. She murdered her last partner. Why would you want to date someone like that? Only 18 years. She's very, very lucky. She'll have a life when she gets out, mark my word. It's a long sentence, but like she's gonna be out eventually. Think of it, what is she, like 25? So she's gonna be out whenever she is 43. She could literally like still live her life. 43, you still got like a good like 40 years left to your life. But yet again, it's just crazy how like someone's able to do that, like capable of doing that. And it's the fact that she jumped into another relationship. Like, what's up with these people?
So let's talk about what this monster did to become the youngest woman ever put on death row. So on the morning of January 13th, 1995, 19-year-old Colleen Schlemmer was found brutally murdered in Knoxville, Tennessee. Colleen had been brutally murdered by having her head smashed in with a concrete block after suffering almost an hour of torture, which included having a pentagram carved into her chest while she was still alive. Now, Krista was quickly caught a few days later because she actually took a piece of Colleen's skull and kept it as a souvenir and was going around showing all of her friends and bragging about the murder. Now, it was soon discovered that Krista had actually murdered Colleen along with her boyfriend because Krista was jealous and thought that Colleen was trying to steal her boyfriend away from her, even though that was not true in the slightest. Krista was just 19 years old when she was found guilty and sentenced to death, and she is currently still sitting on death row awaiting her execution.
Yet again, it's just insane how someone can do something like that. And it's the fact that she was bragging about it. Why would you brag about that? In America, the death sentence is like a very big thing. Personally, I don't agree with it. Because think of it, if you're putting someone to death, I think the whole reason is that like they're meant to sit in there like not knowing ever they're going to be taken out. However, people eventually do get the lethal injection. I personally don't agree with that because like I feel like them behind bars would be so much longer because they literally have to wait until they die behind bars. The lethal injection is just the easy way out. But yet again, it's just the fact that she was walking around bragging about that. It's just weird, and it's the fact that like she probably seemed like a normal person. She was capable of doing that. I live in Knoxville. Well, I would move out of Knoxville after that. Imagine literally living in an area that a gruesome murder like that happened in. Thinking about it now, has there been any crimes or murders in my area? I don't think so. Not to my knowledge, and I don't want there to be.
If I didn't know this was a true crime case, I would think it was a disturbing horror film. On the morning of the 7th of October 2022, a barefoot woman was running around Excelsior Springs, Missouri, bashing on people's doors. Witnesses describe her looking like she came straight from a horror film and she was calling for help. She'd been beaten, held captive, and SA'd for weeks. The woman was a shocking sight. She was covered in injuries and was wearing a bin bag. Disturbingly, she was gasping for breath as she had a very tight metal collar locked around her neck. It was a nurse who opened the door to her and let her come in. The nurse started to call police, and at this point the woman panicked. She warned her that the captor would kill her and claimed that he had killed her 2 friends. When police got there, the woman explained that a man called Timothy had captured her the month prior. He'd been holding her hostage this whole time. She said he'd been keeping her locked in the basement and had been SAing her. Disturbingly, she told police that he actually had a young son who lived at the house with him. When Timothy had taken his young son to school the one day, she used it as her opportunity to escape. Police made their way to the home of 39-year-old Timothy Haslett Jr. and found the property did in fact have a basement like the woman described. Timothy was arrested and is facing 9 charges including first-degree kidnapping. He's being held on a $3 million bond and faces 5 life sentences. Before his arrest, police were actually called to his address 3 times. Twice they were asked to do welfare checks, and this was from an employer and also family members. Police have searched his home with cadaver dogs and they haven't yet released what they know.
If someone has ever had 2 welfare checks at their house, you know something's up. Yet again, that right there is something straight out of Criminal Minds, and it's weird to think that actually happened. Imagine going through that, like the trauma, the PTSD. You'd never be able to trust someone ever again. I was just talking about Criminal Minds, but look at this comment. There's an episode of Criminal Minds where a dad uses his son to lure women in and keeps them in his basement and tortures them, but it came out in 2008. I mean, for all we know, he could have been recreating that episode. Whenever I do watch programs like that, I think in the back of my head if someone tried to recreate it. I mean, you don't know, maybe someone has. This man is from my town and grew up with my parents. That's weird though. It's weird to think like your parents knew him and he probably seemed like a normal guy. You know, he had a house, he had a family, he had his son. You wouldn't think someone who has a son would be doing that. And it makes you think that the son know. Oh, it's weird. I'm thinking she wasn't the only one he's done this to. That's why nothing's been released. I mean, for all we know, there could be bodies in the back garden. Usually people like him, you know, if they're good at it, they'll be doing it multiple times. It's just so freaky yet again that they do that. Like, why are they so evil? Well, anyways, guys, that's where I leave that video there. That's some creepy true crime TikToks. I hope this video didn't terrify you too much, but always keep in mind that everyone is not a nice person. There's a lot of people like the people in this video out in the world. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see me watch more true crime TikToks, let me know, definitely will. Press the bigger subscribe and see you all tomorrow for another video.